So there is something quite interesting when you come down to Florida and you take the kids out to different attraction parks and they're all having fun and everything, and then you realize that the way that you can actually make an attraction park impactful with a real message is when there is actually a mission, there is a purpose that the attraction park has. And I want to relate more specifically to the one called SeaWorld. In SeaWorld, they took upon themselves the mission to preserve nature, to make sure to not kill animals, to preserve what we have, to not provoke pollution on the beaches, all kind of actions of awareness that we have to preserve our planet, we have to preserve the animals. And it's a really interesting concept and really important at the same time. Now, the real question is, what does the Torah say about this? Where do we stand as Jews? What exactly do we tell our children? And there is no better than Parashat Shoftim, this week's Parashat, that actually talks about something quite important, something we don't usually relate to so much. And I think it's important to really, this time, to talk about it. So we have in the end of the Parasha a very famous mitzvah, mitzvat lo ta'aseh. And the mitzvah is known as the mitzvah of Bal Tashchit. What is Bal Tashchit? Bal Tashchit, usually we talk about to not waste. Do not waste food, do not throw food to the garbage, finish up your plate, we tell our children, etc., etc. But when you look at the context of the Torah itself, you will realize that Bal Tashchit is quite different. It's not just about not wasting. It's actually about not destroying. Bal Tashchit really means to not destroy fruits, trees that have fruits, even in a time of war. This is really the context of the Torah. The pasuk says, "Ki tatzur el ha'ir yamim rabim lehilachem aleha letofsa." Whenever you are at war and you are in a siege, you are surrounding a city, and the Torah says, "Lo tashchit et aitzah lindoach alav garazen." You are not allowed to destroy trees that bear fruits in order to manufacture weapons. This is really what the pasuk of Bal Tashchit is about. So in other words, you cannot destroy any tree. You have to make sure that the tree that you are going to use is a tree that is not bearing fruit. Now, this actual halakha is something that we may know when you have a tree that has fruits in your backyard, etc. We all know that there is also something a little bit more than the mitzvah itself that is bring chas v'shalom bad things to a person who does that. But leave this on the side. There is something here about preservation of nature itself that the Torah is talking about, and it's not just here, by the way. I must tell you that there is an astonishing one single mitzvah, the first mitzvah that we ever had as humans, that Adam Harishon had as a human, was in the pasuk Parashat Bereshit, Vayikach Hashem Elohim et ha'adam vayanichehu began Eden le'ovdah ulshomrah. Did you hear that? In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Adam Harishon, placed him in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, and he asked him to le'ovdah ulshomrah, to serve it and to preserve it, which means that Adam Harishon's only mission before the sin was to preserve nature, to preserve the garden of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to make sure that everything would be in place. And not only that, it came also to a specific commandment, something much more targeted, the famous Eitz Hadat, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, Mikol Eitz Hagan Tochel, you can take everything you want, you have my permission. However, Ume'etz Hadat Tov Vara Lo Tochal Mimenu, Ki Beyom Acholcha Mimenu Mot Tamut. The day you will eat from that tree, you will die. At that moment, everything changed, which means that Adam Harishon received some kind of a restriction. It wasn't just about preserving nature, protecting the gun. It was also about staying away from something. And on this, we all know that him and his wife have failed. At their level, obviously, at our level, because we all failed in that sin. But the reality is that we failed at really that one commandment to not eat from, to not step in the area that we were not permitted to touch. And I think that this is really, really important because it shows us about the dynamic of the mitzvah, of the concept of preserving nature according to the Torah. Let me just go back a little bit to Parashat Shoftim to explain what I mean. You see, the Torah chose a very far-fetched scenario. The scenario where we are at war and we need weapons, we need to fight for our life, there is life danger at stake, and yet the Torah says, wait a minute, you have to stop. You are not allowed to touch the trees that are bearing fruit. You could only touch those that are not. Why the Torah choose such a far-fetched scenario where we are in times of war? And I think that the answer lays in the reason why we have this mitzvah to preserve nature as humans. We still have to remember the message, the mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Adam HaRishon to do. And there is a fundamental difference in the way that we see it and the way that the Goyim see it. Because you see, in the Goyim world, the reason why we have to preserve nature, it's because we have to ensure that there will be species tomorrow, there will be a better world tomorrow, that there will be a world for our children to live peacefully and in harmony. We don't really believe in this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who controls the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who is putting us in charge in the world. But the reality is that He will always make sure that what happens in the world will run the right way. We are pawns. We are not just actors in the world that have control over our future and even over our present. We have a mission to remember that we only get permission to use the world when He tells us that it's okay. In other words, at the end of the day, our mission in this world is to do what He's asking us to do. Not to preserve the world, not to ensure a future to our children. He's in charge of that, and He will make sure that this happens. But He asked us to always remember that as much control as we can feel that we have on the world, we can cut down trees and kill animals and eat them, etc. This is only a permission that He gives us, that we may never overstep. And that was the mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu asked Adam HaRishon. Mikol Eitz Hagan Tochel. You have the right. I give you permission. But remember, there is one area that you cannot overstep, because I am always in charge. I am the one in control. And when Adam failed, when Adam overstepped, this is the reality of the sin that he did. And remember, by the way, we were not allowed even to eat animals in the times of Adam. We were given the right to eat animals only by the time of Noah, after the Mabul. So in other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu always reminds us, yes, Adam, you are the Nezer HaBeriyah. Yes, you are the crown of creation. But remember that you cannot overstep. Remember that this world is mine. And I ask you to make sure that the world is a safe place. I ask you because you have to remember that you are still my Eved, that you are still my servant, that you have still a mission to do that. And that is the whole concept of preservation of nature that we have in the Torah. This is the concept of Bal Tashchit. Even for the sake of life, even for the sake of fabricating, of making weapons, remember where your place is. Remember that you're not completely and fully in charge and in control of this world, because I am here, because I, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, am truly in charge. So yes, we are so proud to be Jews. We are so proud to also have a commandment to preserve nature, to preserve the world, to preserve the animals. But remember what the message is behind, the reason that is behind. On this, I wish you all an amazing and safe Shabbat Shalom Umvorach.